gentlemen, we're so excited that you're here with us. And we're going to kind of go chronologically down the line and ask the questions of each of these folks, and I'll introduce you each as we go. So first, just to my left here, is Mike Peters, the CEO of WPPI Energy. And so Mike, first, if you would just tell us briefly about WPPI Energy and who you serve.
Sure. WPPI is a joint action agency. We're actually a wholesale power supplier to 51 community-owned utilities in 3 states. We have a large Wisconsin presence. We have 41 members in the state of Wisconsin. We have 7 utilities in the UP in Michigan, and then we have our 3 municipal utilities in Iowa. We were created in 1980 to give economies of scale to municipal utilities in general. And today that has grown to the 51 that we have. We started with 23, we now serve 51. We have 50 municipals and 1 co-op.
Well, this year, Mike, WPPI announced 2 big renewable projects. Leading up to that, you issued an RFP. So let's first start there. Why did you run an RFP for renewable energy projects?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. First off, we had open space. We had resource space that we needed to fill in the early 20s, and typical utility practice, long-term planning. We started looking in the in 2010 to 2015 timeframe. Was starting to really look at what we needed to do to fill that open space. We spent 2014, and frankly, we looked at natural gas. We thought that was what we'd end up going with. We worked with a group of utilities and spent 2014 really studying potential for a new large utility scale combined cycle natural gas plant. Ultimately, that is the Superior plant that's going in.
Okay.
We were part of that group that looked at joining into that plant. So we had state-of-the-art information on the technology, the cost, different scenarios based on gas price, and ultimately we decided it wasn't a good fit for us. And knowing that the production tax credit, the investment tax credits were going to be expiring, we thought we would pivot and take a look at what was possible in the renewable sector. And so as a not-for-profit utility, WPPI is a not-for-profit utility, so we can't take advantage of the tax incentives, the ITC or the PTC directly. And so we get the advantage by partnering with a developer, and so we did an RFP. We issued the RFP in 2016. We fully believed that we would be getting a lot of proposals on wind, but we were surprised at really what we did ultimately end up with.
Yeah, I mean, so the first result coming out of that RFP was the Point Beach solar facility with NextEra. And so tell us about the project, but first, how shocked were you that solar was recommended to you by your staff?
You know, it was surprising. Wind was significantly. We all knew what was happening in the wind sector. We had heard the prices of wind. There wasn't a lot of solar, large-scale solar in Wisconsin, so we were not anticipating that we would get. We knew we'd get some proposals, but we just didn't realize what they were going to be. And we had just did a 1-megawatt solar project in Jefferson. And we knew the pricing of that. It was okay at the time, but it wasn't something we wanted to do 100 megawatts with. And so we issued the RFP. We had over 30 developers with 62 projects. We even had one for perpetual motion machine.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, then you know you really got it.
Yeah, we covered the waterfront when we got the responses to the RFP. And so when we ran the numbers, solar, the Point Beach solar in particular, kept coming out on top, and so we were really pleased, surprised, yes, but very pleased that we were able to enter into an agreement with NextEra Energy to develop the Point Beach solar project.
Great, and we'll talk a little bit more about the wind project and some stuff, but I want to move to Jeff Keebler. Jeff, CEO of mg&e. You've been there 20 years. You took the helm in 2017. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think, right?
So far, so good.
And so just tell us a little bit about Madison Gas and Electric and who you serve.
So mg&e, Madison Gas and Electric, is a utility. You can see our service territory on the slides. We're in and around the Dane County area. We have about 150,000 gas customers, 150,000 electric customers. About 2/3 of those overlap, but not all of them do. You can see also on the slide where our generation resources are, and those sorts of things. One of the things I wanted to point out is one of the things that we did in 2015, is we came out with our Energy 2030 framework. And that framework is really important for us. It really sets the stage of how we're going to be moving forward over the next 15 years or so. It's a framework, it's not a plan, and the reason it's a framework is because we are working on what are those individual components that we're going to do, and we're going to get to talk about some of those today. I did want to point out that the framework really is based on achieving carbon reduction, so 40% carbon reduction from our 2005 levels, and we do that with a number of building blocks. We do that with energy efficiency, we do that with transitioning our generation fleet to a cleaner energy source, we do that through ensuring that our distribution grid is able to handle the different types of generation resources and different types of loads, uses that our customers are going to have. And we want to make sure that we are providing products and services to customers that allow them to control their energy use in ways that make sense for them. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is we're partnering with a lot of people. We'll talk about some of those partnerships later, but we want to make sure that the new technology and availability of technology is there for everyone. So that's what we've been working on with our Energy 2030.
So tell us about two of the projects so far that have come out of your framework. And first, towards the beginning of this year, you announced you were going to file for the Saratoga Wind Project, a new 66 megawatt wind project, and you got approval this year. And then second, the chronology is a little out of order on the calendar, but tell us a little bit about shared solar and what you're doing around solar.
Certainly. So as you mentioned, Saratoga, we're really excited about Saratoga. Don Peterson's in the back of the room, he's the one building it, so if he has bags under his eyes, that's the reason why. We pushed him pretty hard, but we're excited about it. It's our largest wind farm to date. It is 66 megawatts in Saratoga, Iowa, about 200 miles west of here. We filed it with the commission. They approved it in November of 2017. We're in the construction phases, and we hope to have it online somewhere around January 1st of 2019. It fits into our portfolio really well, but the unique thing about this is we weren't looking at this to fill a hole necessarily. A lot of times when you do planning, you're looking at you have capacity needs or whatnot. This we're looking at how do we use technology, how do we use cost-effective resources to help us get lower cost power, and that's what Saratoga does. So when you look at the numbers, and Mike was talking about the numbers that he saw from the solar installations. When we look at the numbers from a wind resource perspective now, they're really good. They're substantially better than they were 5 years ago and even better than what they were 10 years ago. So we're really excited about Saratoga. It fits into our portfolio.
So I just want to underscore that point because it was a new paradigm at our Public Service Commission, and I think within the industry was you weren't building this to meet a renewable portfolio standard. You just were looking at costs. You've got market purchases. You've got other purchases. You look at this wind project, it fits in at a lower overall cost to your customers. Is that right?
It certainly does, yes.
Okay.
And some of the drivers of that are the location of it. We found a location that's really good. It's in a very good wind resource, but also a very good transmission area. We have an advantage. We're relatively small, as you can tell from our 150,000 customers. So we can pick sites that are sized for our load and what our customers need. So this was a site that worked out really well with that. Technology has changed, so these are going to be 500 foot installations. We're seeing about a 50% capacity factor out of that. So if you compare that to what was installed 10 years ago, we were seeing about a 30% capacity factor, 33% capacity factor in similar wind areas. So just the technology growth and how technology has changed and what we can do with it is really making these cost effective.
That's great. Just tell us a little bit about shared solar then, and then we'll...
So shared solar, 500 kW solar array. We partnered with the city of Middleton, and we built a 500 kW solar array on their new Middleton Operations Center. This is a community solar. We call it shared solar, but it's a community solar project where we actually allow customers to buy into that project. So we have about 250 customers who bought into that project who are now receiving energy from the project, and they'll receive that for the 25-year life of the project.
Great.
So very good project for us, and we're interested in doing more.
Great. Dan, give us just a quick overview of WPPI Energy Group and who you serve.
Okay, thanks, Tyler. So WPPI Energy Group, as you can see on the screen there, we are one of the largest utility holding companies in the United States. We're the largest utility in Wisconsin with operations in 3 other states. So 4.4 million customers, electric and gas across Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan. In Wisconsin, we have 1.6 million electric customers. So you may have heard of WPS or Wpvi Energy Those are both ours. We're pleased to partner with both these gentlemen here. Some of our generation projects, and I think, we're well known for customer reliability and customer service. This year we were very proud to be named the best in the United States in keeping the lights on for the 3rd time. And for the 7th year in a row, we're named the most reliable utility in the Midwest.
And in November, you guys made a big announcement that you were looking at 350 megawatts of solar. So can you walk us through the situation that led to that announcement and what else is going on with your fleet?
Well, I was interested to hear the discussion with our partners here because what you're hearing on the stage is least cost resource discussion, right? And that's what's really changed in the last few years. I did not picture myself ever sitting on a stage like this with utilities talking about filling our capacity and energy needs with renewables, but here we are. For us, we look at the MISO market, and what we see is a MISO market which is really awash in low-cost, affordable energy for quite some time. And we think that's driven in large part by significant wind resources being added, as well as historically low sustained natural gas prices that will keep those energy prices down. We want to take advantage of that, and we particularly see affordable energy in the shoulder months, the shoulder hours of the day. So as we conducted our long-term resource planning, what kept coming up for us was the least cost resource, to our surprise, shifted over the years from natural gas to utility scale solar. We're looking for capacity resources as our primary need in the mid and long-term planning horizons for WEC, and for us, the clear winner in that case is utility scale solar.
Great, and we'll talk a little bit more about the fleet changeover, the coal plant retirement as we go. But Dan, you kind of hit on this point, capacity and energy. And so Mike, I know that was, as you looked at Point Beach Solar, that was a part of the component too in the pricing and why that made sense. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Capacity, for us, we had that open space. We needed additional capacity in the early 20s. And solar and wind, great resources, but they're not interchangeable. Mm-hmm. We know when solar comes on, we know when when wind peaks, and they're just not interchangeable. But they do complement each other very well. The summer, the hottest times of the year, longer days, we can get a lot of value out of the solar systems that we're installing. And you look at how MISO gives you capacity credit for solar. They give 50% of the value of nameplate capacity as a credit towards your capacity requirements. Wind is probably the 15 to 18% category. So you install a 100 megawatt solar project like we're looking at doing, and we're getting 50 megawatts of capacity credit for that. And when you do the economics of it, the contract price on our solar was higher than the contract price that we were looking at for the wind. But when you add in the value of the capacity, that's where Point Beach Solar really jumped to the top of the list for us. We needed that additional capacity. It has real value in MISO. And so when we ran the numbers, it was beating wind, even though wind contracts may have been almost half of the cost. But when you add in that capacity value, it's really what drove our final decision.
And Dan, you've told me numbers. You're hoping for higher than 50% capacity credit on solar.
We are.
Still?
So I agree with Mike on his analysis. We do see a first-year capacity value accreditation from MISO of 50%. We're looking for a longer term, 70%.
Same thing.
And we expect that those numbers will probably increase over time.
Great. Jeff, when you look at energy and capacity, where is mg&e at in those two, and how is that impacting your planning as you look out?
So we think about it the same way. You have energy resources that provide the energy you need, and you have capacity resources, and sometimes you have a blend of those. Saratoga, as I said, was an energy resource. We are looking at capacity resources. One of the things Dan mentioned is the partnership. And mg&e has a partnership model. We partner with a lot of different groups. One of the groups that we partner with is our other Wisconsin utility. So I'm appreciative of both gentlemen sitting with me and their companies for the partnerships that we've had over time. As Dan mentioned, they're looking at solar. They're willing to allow us to partner with them on that solar installation, so we're interested in doing that, and we're willing to do that as well. That would fit a nice capacity need for us, as well as a low-cost energy need. And the other thing is the timing of when you get the production. out of solar is different from the timing when you get the production out of wind. So solar is during the day, and wind typically is more nights, off-peak period, shoulder months. So they're really good complementary products to have.
Great. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about corporate renewable energy. We've talked about this. I mentioned this is an interest of Renew Wisconsin. Across the country, we've seen big name brand folks from Amazon and Google and Apple, yes, saying we want vast amounts of renewable energy. But a member of the audience today just came up to me and showed me his little phone and said, "Did you know General Motors is doing that too?" I said, "I did." But not everybody does. It's not just high-tech firms. It's Procter & Gamble. It's Walmart. It's Target. It's General Motors. It's a whole swath of corporate America that is looking to access renewable energy. Jeff, you guys started down this road. And can you tell us a little bit about what MG&E's done on corporate access and local government access of renewables?
Sure. Yeah, we've been working with our customers, and as you mentioned, there are a lot of national-type corporations that are interested in this. We're also seeing a lot of local companies that are interested in this, a lot of government agencies that are interested in this. So we've developed a program that allows us to work with our customers in a way that we haven't been able to work with in the past, to provide them renewable energy technology that fits their particular need. So we call it our Renewable Energy Rider, and it's a tariff that we filed with the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. They approve that tariff, and what that tariff allows us to do is it allows us to develop projects, work with customers to help them develop projects or others develop projects to meet their individual needs. So this was approved earlier this year. And we really can tailor them. You mentioned earlier, Tyler, in your opening comments about the corporate buyers principles. We've worked closely with that corporate buyers group, World Wildlife Fund, the World Resources Institute, to help develop this program in context with those buyers principles. So this will allow those companies who share those buyers principles to work with us to build solar, wind, or other renewable technology that works for them.
Yeah, we really like those buyers' principles. These non-governmental organizations have got these groups together, and some of the big things these corporates are looking for is they want to have an impact on the market. They want to be buying wind or solar that's new projects, not old projects, and not just projects from West Texas or Oklahoma. They want projects closer to home. They all have their different sort of characteristics of what they're looking for, but they are starting to amass some pretty impressive buying power. Dan and Mike, I mean, what are you seeing and any plans at your utility levels to kind of engage with your customers that are asking for these kind of really far-reaching renewable goals?
Yeah, we watched what MG&E did with their tariff, and we really think it's a great move for them. We're taking a look at where we could move into that sector. We have a green rate program like the other utilities do, but we have seen a desire of customers to actually be able to point to a tangible project and say, that's where I'm getting my resources from, as opposed to, we have a REC type program where we retire RECs on behalf of a customer, and that's a green program, but it's not necessarily a project-based program. So customers want to be able to point to a project and basically put their name on it. So we're starting to look at that and how we could incorporate that. The challenge for a utility is you have built an asset base and a resource base to serve your customers, and if you start peeling customers off of that and they go into a different project, they're no longer contributing to the investments that you've made, and other customers have to pick that up. So it's a balancing act. Obviously, if it's a new customer, much easier to move forward with a project on their behalf. But with the existing customer base, you have to look for ways to make sure you're balancing the cost so that other customers aren't picking that up. It's about cost, it's about subsidy. Yep. But we're starting to hear from customers in that area, and we're going to be taking a look at it.
Great. And Dan?
Exactly the same as Mike.
Okay. Yeah, you've got a bigger service territory. I know for Jeff, we look at the Walmarts and the Targets. There's maybe, 3 Walmarts in your territory, 2 Targets, no distribution centers.
Right.
It gets hard for some of these big folks that have these national reaches, but different story for you, where you've got a much bigger service territory where they've got not only the stores but the distribution centers. I don't know if you're seeing more of that, or how that might play into the solar announcements and what might be possible there.
Well, as Mike pointed out, we are watching with great interest what's happening with MG&E's tariff, and we do think that there's a lot to be said for what's happening. I agree with Mike's point, and we have to figure out the balance. It's much simpler for a new customer and new load than it is for existing customers, right? And how do we have equity and generational equity there? In terms of our solar projects that we've announced, the 350 megawatts, I want to give some sense of scale. So 4.4 million customers, 1.6 million electric customers. Our generating portfolio is mid-sized. We have between assets that we own and assets that we have PPAs with, about 12,000 megawatts. We're retiring, give or take, 2,000 megawatts. Those are installed capacity numbers, which will put us at about 10,000, a little short. In addition of 350 megawatts is actually quite modest in that portfolio. For now, we're expecting that to be all utility service. We are open to considering new customers and adjusting that portfolio as we go forth. One of the things I've remarked is it's amazing how popular you become when you announce projects like that. So many of you in the room have found us. We're found in person. We appreciate your offers, and we've received offers of every shape, size, term, some very creative ones. We appreciate all that. And the results of all that analysis that we're doing, may very well influence how far and how big we go with the portfolio.
Great. Yeah, I showed the map. If the 350 megawatts you're looking at happens to be on that map, there's still 1,200 megawatts out there being developed. So there's a lot more room to run. I'll just take a quick moment to say if you have questions, to be writing them down on your index cards, hold them up. We'll start to collect them. I've got a series of more questions, but we'll start getting the audience Q&A teed up. We always have about 30, and we'll filter them down to 5 or 6. Don't worry. Great discussion about the corporate. We see it as an exciting thing. Yesterday in my national ACOR, which is the Council on Renewable Energy, the headline of that daily was "Solar is on track to be the cheapest source of electricity," and that comes from the head of the International Energy Agency, so we're thinking global. Dan, you talked a little bit about this, but want to get all of your perspectives as we look at the market and the pricing for renewables, and you've remarked both on how wind has come down, how solar has come down. The federal government, the Clean Power Plan, where that was going and now kind of off the table, and the transition of your power generation fleets, sort of in light of this continued future outlook where solar prices keep coming down and wind prices look like they're going to stay down. What does that mean for your generation transformation over the next 20, 30 years?
Yeah, it really does. Stan said, you'd be surprised. 5 years ago, we would have never thought we'd be sitting here talking about solar as the least cost resource, but that's where it's moved into. For us, our strategy is fairly simple. Do we have a need? What's the lowest cost? And also, how much? For us, we're about 1,000 megawatt utility. About 200,000 meters are served throughout our 51-member community. So we're not significantly a large utility. We're more like an mg&e from a power supply standpoint. We don't want to have any more than 10% of our capacity needs coming from any one unit. So we look to size either our contract or our ownership in an asset to no more than about 100 megawatts or so. So we try to maintain diversity in our fleet through maintaining a smaller ownership or a smaller contract piece. Nobody can predict the future, and so we try to keep a diverse portfolio. That being said, with what we looked at in our renewable sector, we could add these projects because we have the open space. We also want to keep some flexibility so that as prices continue to drop, we can add additional generating capacity, whether it's more solar, more wind. And we do that by keeping a portion of our portfolio, about 10-15% long-term, more short-term, 1, 2, 3, 5-year contracts. We have an ownership base. We have an ownership in Elm Road, long-term asset. We have long-term contracts. Our contracts go out to the mid-2030s, even to the 2040s. But we have a piece of our portfolio that is short-term, 1, 2, 3, 5 years. And so by having that ability to roll those off and then take a look at what's available at that time, we're able to add to the portfolio and do it in a cost-effective manner. And as you said, right now, solar is very cost-effective.
Yeah. And I'm going to go down the line on that question and come back to you to talk a little bit of wind and the Wpvi Energy project. So yeah, how this whole sort of market change, the federal policies, and then, transition of your generation fleet. How is this all playing out? How do you see it playing out over the next couple decades?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we created our Energy 2030 framework to help move us, to help give us a guideline of how we're moving forward. That Energy 2030 framework was created, it's aligned with the Paris Agreement on climate change. It's aligned with Clean Power Plan when that existed. So those are the things that we're working for. One of the things I talk about internally a lot is solving multiple equations or simultaneous equations at the same time. So,
and you're giving me nightmares in my differential equations class.
but this is really good. So what we saw 5 or 10 years ago is people were investing in renewables, utilities were investing in renewables to meet RPS standards, renewable portfolio standards. And that was the driver. So you required public policy to allow us to do that because of cost effective. We have obligations to all of our customers, and low cost is one of those obligations: safety, reliability, cost, affordability. Now what you're seeing is with technology change, we don't necessarily need those policies as much as we did once before. We're all up here investing in renewable technology because it's cost effective, and that's going to continue to happen. Our philosophy is very similar to the WPPI's philosophy, that we want to do things over time. We want to have smaller pieces over time. A little harder for smaller utilities to have small pieces, but that's what we want to do, and that's why we partner with others. But if we had, I look back, and if we had invested everything that we could have in wind technology 10 years ago, we'd be regretting that decision. Because technology, the cost effectiveness, the efficiency, has all gotten substantially better. So over time, we are going to be converting our fleet, and that's what we've said we're going to do, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So it's really exciting from not just an environmental perspective, but a cost perspective, from a hedging perspective, flatlining costs for customers over time. So it's really a great time to be in the market.
Great. And Dan?
It's hard to go third with comments like that. I think a couple thoughts are the market really did for renewables what maybe folks thought CPP would do. So the market took care of it. For everyone in the room, we look forward to doing more and more with you over the years. It really is a least cost resource question for us. And as we look at our portfolio, we do expect it to evolve and change. We have a long-term goal of staying with a diversified fuel portfolio. Our long-term goal is 1/3 coal, 1/3 natural gas, 1/3 zero emissions technologies, be it nuclear, fossil, hydro, wind. We do think there could be adjustments in that as economics evolve. But the good news for renewables is that's 1/3 of our energy. So we have quite a bit of room to run, even with the nuclear in our portfolio today. We do look at these numbers, as these gentlemen have said, and we have to measure capacity and energy, right? So I think everyone in the room is probably familiar, but as utilities, we're required to meet our capacity obligations in MISO, which are the sum of our summer peak load, our wholesale contracts, and the MISO required reserves. So we will meet that. And then we plug in energy as best we can in a way that are most effective. And for now, we continue to solve in our models that for a company that's very focused on meeting capacity needs, because of the metrics that Mike, for example, threw out, and the terrific presence of the solar energy at those peak hours in the right times of the year at zero cost, it's a terrific fit. So we look forward to more of that.
And Mike, let's come back and talk a little bit about the second announcement that came from your RFP, which was a wind farm.
Right. In August of 2017, we announced a project with Wpvi, 132 megawatt wind farm. It's in Henry County, Illinois, about 40 miles from Davenport, Iowa. As I said, when we did that RFP, we issued it with 100 megawatts as our target. When the prices started coming in, we did the Next Era project. We still had some open space for energy resources, and we went right back to the same developers that we did in the first round and sat and talked with a few of them in Wpvi. We had a partnership with Wpvi in another project already, actually 2 projects. And so we knew them, they knew us, had a great working relationship, and we were able to enter into a long-term purchase power agreement. They're building it right now. Matter of fact, they're commissioning turbines right now. We'll have that online probably, and it'll be online in commercial Our contract is by June 1, but it'll be online before that. So again, 132 megawatt project, great energy resource for us, and a low-cost resource.
Great, thank you. So let's shift gears, Dan, and talk about bioenergy. This year, the Public Service Commission had an RFP process, what they call an integrated anaerobic digester. And the road they were going down was, with the smaller digesters, there's pros and cons, but what if we kind of go big, right? What if we try to get a big economies of scale? And what came out of that was called Green Pastures Bioenergy Center. And WPPI Energy Group, you're an investor in that project. Tell us about the project, why you're involved, and what you see coming out of it.
Right, so we like solar and wind, we also like bio, so everyone in the should feel good. Well, for those of you not from Wisconsin, we have 6.5 million people and nearly 2 million units of dairy, right? So manure is a significant challenge for us to take care of in the state of Wisconsin. And there's been a lot of discussion and some issues around groundwater and surface water quality in areas such as Green Bay and counties like Brown and Keeler. We are a utility holding company for electric and gas. We have no current holdings in biogas, but these are also our customers and our neighbors, right? And so we felt compelled to look at this issue. So as we did take a look at it with a small team, we scanned the market and we did find two companies that we thought had really good technology, one with biodigesters and one with water cleaning technology. And the technology really fit the state's needs about minimizing land application of liquid manure, removing phosphorus, etc., and producing clean water. So they didn't need us for that, but what they needed was a financial backer. So it's a consortium that we joined. It's called Dynamic. We're not going to be the builder. We're not the operator. We're not any of those things. We're really the bank. And we're pleased to provide that kind of ongoing support and financial backing for this kind of venture. It's our customers and neighbors.
Great, and we were supportive of the project, and like I said, we're supportive of all shapes and sizes of biogas. But this is definitely a new thing. We're going to hear from Dane County as well at our new panel, and they're kind of going down the same road on biogas and looking at this with the gas injection model. So we'll hear more from Joe Parisi then. Want to shift gears to some emerging technologies. We do have some questions about these kind of things too, but I'll kick it off with Jeff and electric vehicles. And curious to have other comments too. But Jeff, I know mg&e's going down the road. I have a headline here. Transportation Today magazine or something. mg&e to electrify half of Madison's bus fleet by 2035. Is that accurate?
I did not know Transportation Today was actually a publication, but yes, I can describe what we're going to be doing
So
in partnership with the City of Madison.
Yeah, talk to us about electric vehicles, personal, city, etc. What do you see with that market? Where mg&e is going? How are you playing in this space?
We're really excited for electric vehicles, and we're excited for a number of different reasons. One is customers want it, and we want to do what customers are looking for. We want to provide products and services to customers that support them. Two, from an environmental perspective, transportation is one of the largest sectors of carbon emissions. So if we can reduce carbon emissions through transportation, that's better for all. Three, there's actually diversity on the grid. So as buses or personal vehicles or fleets are charging, it can actually diversify when our electric use is at its greatest time or levelize that electric use, which provides benefits to the grid as well as it allows it to be more cost effective. And lastly, and this one may be counterintuitive, but the electrification of vehicles or anything else actually helps us transition our generation fleets faster. And what I mean by that is, as we're adding incremental load, it's easier and cheaper, and along with our planning processes and the other things we have to do, to build to meet that new load, and we can build renewables or other clean energy technology to build that new load. That's actually better and more cost effective than building to replace existing generation. So we think it solves multiple equations as well. So we're doing a number of things. We've been in the residential personal vehicle space for a while. We don't sell cars, but we do partner with car dealerships. We've offered EV discounts when partnering with them. charging stations. We do ride and drive events so people get familiar with electric vehicles because it is new technology, and some people are uncomfortable with that new technology. A couple things that we're really proud of, we have a public EV charging station. We have 29 public chargers around our area. The majority of them are level 2 chargers, some do level 1 charging as well. We have 2 DC fast chargers, which is exciting because it allows people to use their vehicles and they don't have that range anxiety that they once had. 2 programs really quickly. One is our Charge at Home pilot program. So one of the things that we want to ensure is that customers have a good experience with their charging. What we know from working with customers is if they plug their vehicle into a standard outlet, they're going to have a horrible experience, and they're going to tell their friends and neighbors they had a horrible
That's
experience.
what I do with my Chevy Bolt.
Come talk to me.
10 hours every night.
Come talk to me. We have a program for you. And Charge at Home, what it does is it allows mg&e to go in and install and maintain a charging station in your garage. So there's a fee for that, a flat fee per month, so there's no subsidization issues with other customers. But we do that for you. You can plug it in. You can have a great experience. You can charge your Volt in 6 hours or so, depending on from full charge. So that's been a really good program. We actually had to go back to the commission. As I said, it's a pilot program. We had limitations on the number that we could offer. We went back and asked them to more than double that program, and they did that. So we're seeing a lot of great success there. The other thing, as you mentioned, is our partnership with the City of Madison. So we've partnered with the City of Madison. They have a bus fleet. They have about 200 buses. They've stated, so it's not necessarily our goal, which is why I was quibbling a little bit with that.
Yeah,
but they've stated that they want to convert at least half their bus fleet to electric buses by 2035, and we're partnering with them on that. So we've been involved in 2 grant applications. One of them they were approved on, the other one is still in process. The first one they've received a grant to buy 3 electric buses starting in 2019. This will be in addition to electric buses that they had planned to do. And the second one, which is more exciting, is a grant to, it has 5 electric buses in it, but more importantly, it has a new bus depot. They own the Nakusa Trail site on the east side of town. They realistically don't have space to convert all their buses to electric buses. So this would allow them to do that. mg&e is partnering with them. We've committed almost $4 million to be used for charging infrastructure, to be used for solar on the rooftop, and to be used for backup generation, so that if there are issues with the grid at any point in time, they can charge their buses. Because those buses are used as warming shelters and other things in the winter if we have issues. So we're really excited about that.
Great. And Mike, Dan, where are your companies at on electric vehicles? And start there, I guess.
Okay, well, the electric vehicles, we don't see quite the customer pull that we're seeing here, but we expect it may evolve similar to solar, or maybe it starts on the coast and works its way in, so we're open to that. One comment that I would make is, as we've grown through acquisitions, as we acquired one utility, we did inherit a company called Trillium. Trillium was a company that still exists that was focused on compressed natural gas, mainly for bus fleets and over-the-road trucking. We subsequently sold that to Love's Travel Stops. But I will say that in this room, EVs seem inevitable. If you go to a natural gas conference, the feeling is very different. They believe CNG is inevitable. And probably for every bus fleet you see electrifying, you see another bus fleet moving to CNG. So it'll be interesting for us to see how that works out. And I think the market will drive it.
Yeah, when you saw that initial slide that showed the membership of WPPI with our 51 communities, they're relatively small communities. I mean, I think our average member is probably 3,000 to 4,000 customers, and so they're relatively small. A lot of rural areas of the state. Madison's a very unique area when you look at the rest of the state. We haven't seen the demand in the EVs, but we are dipping our toe in the water. We do have a grant program, an incentive program for our members to put EV public charging stations, and also allow them to offer discounts for charging stations in a garage. And so home-based or public stations, we put that in place for 2017 or for 2018, and roll that out and see how it develops. We have a Chevy Volt in our fleet. We have a Chevy Bolt. I drove the Bolt.
How is it?
I drove it for the first time last week. It's a great little car.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes off. It's a lot of torque, and it's a nice little car to drive. Very comfortable. I can see the range anxiety issue. I'm watching the the readout there, and it showed I had 160 miles. Fortunately, it wasn't going very far, so it wasn't an issue. But you draw a circle around our office and figure out how far can I drive this thing without any concerns. And we can get to a number of our members, but I wouldn't want to take off to go to the UP.
Yeah.
But eventually, those charging stations, those quick charging stations, will be developed over time. It's coming, but it's gonna come a lot slower, I think, than maybe what's been pushed.
Yeah, just so many automotive companies. We've seen the headlines over the last year. Ford, I think 11 billion into EVs in the next couple of years. I think I saw Infinity yesterday will be all electric. Volkswagen has made commitments. And then on the government side, you've seen, I think, China, a couple of European countries, California, all start talking about banning combustion engines in their cars. So the market is there, and in some places policy is driving, and so it does seem like an emerging market. Jeff, you've got aspirational goals, but it sounds like no matter what, if some of this stuff takes off, there's going to be electrical needs to serve this, and how that impacts your load is going to be certainly interesting thing to watch as we go.
Can I just make one more comment? This is relevant to this discussion and pretty much all the discussions we're having. Dan described a different experience that he has with his customers than what we have with our customers. And what you see from all of us is we're all reacting to what our customers' needs are. And so I want to make sure that people understand that if you see us doing something and others not, or others doing something and us not, it doesn't mean that we're not paying attention to it and we're not looking at that. It just is we're reacting to what our customers' needs. I believe electric vehicles are going to take off. I believe there are segments of the market that are never going to be electrified, and they are going to be natural gas, compressed natural gas. So we're developing a portfolio of services. When I say we, as the utilities in general are developing a portfolio of services so that we can meet all of our customers' needs. So I just wanted to
transitioning to energy storage, I think it's market-driven in some places. The PJM, which is a different market than our MISO Midwest market, has different rules, and we see a lot of storage going there. So I know it's rule dependent, but as you just think about technology, and you've talked about energy, and you've talked about capacity, where do you see storage going at this point? If the costs continue declining as they have, how does energy storage play into your future plans at a distribution level or other levels in your systems? Anybody want to kick that off?
That's a great question. So we do see the solar curve flattening a bit, and so we think now is an ideal time to invest in utility scale solar because the curve is flattening, and we see the window beginning to close, or we see the end of the window for the maximum ITC. So the solar, it's an excellent time. With the batteries, we see some significant further declines, probably driven by the transportation industry. Where we might start, working with partners such as mg&e on some of our solar facilities, we may prepare them for a future battery installation without installing it. We certainly are considering batteries along with smaller solar, along with small internal combustion engines to be distributed energy resources in our system. So I would say the best bet for us for quick moves in batteries is as a DDR per se, somewhere in our grid that needs just localized generation.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts on energy storage?
Yeah, we, just like Wpvi Energy, we're looking at it, but it isn't something that's cost effective today, and the costs are continuing to decline. We're anxious to watch to see where that goes, but we have our 51 member communities. We don't own distribution assets ourselves. Those are our member communities that own them. I think they'll have need and a better fit for battery technology before WPPI will need it. Again, for the standpoint of shoring up the distribution system in lieu of building additional distribution system, maybe they can address it through a battery technology sometime in the future. But we still see that as being a cost-effective resource sometime in the future, just not today.
Great.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you. We're interested in we've been following battery technology for a long time. We're familiar with it. It hasn't made sense for us to go out and jump into.
And we hear the same thing from our business and residential customers that are looking at it. Is, hey, it's on the horizon, and a lot of our contractors, I'm going to steal this from one of them, is, hey, let's think about phase 1, phase 2. You want to put solar on your roof today? Let's make that investment. It's cost effective. Maybe storage is there in 4 years, and we can think about it then. So, yeah.
Yep.
I've got one more of my questions, and then we've got some great audience questions. And the final one, hopefully it's not too much of a softball, but we've invited a lot of students to come. When our sponsors sign up to be a sponsor, they get a certain amount of slots, and not all of them use them all, and so we give them away to students. We got folks from Madison, Marquette, Platteville, all over the state. Talk to us about the jobs in the utilities. What's it look like, your workforce? I hear a lot about workforce transitions. So what does it look like? What would you tell these students as far as job opportunities in the utility sector and in this clean energy sector as you look ahead?
Start with that one?
Sure.
So I would say it's an exciting time. So if you look at mg&e and you look at our demographics, the two biggest groups of employees we have are those that have been with mg&e for more than 30 years and those that have been with mg&e for less than 5 years. So we are seeing transition, we are seeing changeover and retirement. It's really, really scary because we have a lot of knowledge going out the door, but it's also really good because we have new ideas and we're in a changing marketplace, as you know. The thing that I've seen the most, so I want to talk about 3 different groups. I'm not going to take long because I want to get to the other questions, but we have 2 different internship programs. So one high school internship program, one we have a lot of college interns that come work for us. And then third, new employees. So I meet with each and every new employee as they come through. We get sit down in small group meetings, and I ask everyone, what did you think before you came to mg&e? What were you thinking we were like? And the words I get are stuffy, old school, boring. and so I asked them, okay, now that you've been here for anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months, and you went through the interview process, so you have all that. What do you think about us? And the words changed to exciting, new technology, no pun intended, but energetic. There's an energy around the utility industry. So I think it's really good. It's a great industry. We're seeing a lot of new types of jobs. We're seeing a lot of opportunity for people.
Mike, Dan, comments on workforce stuff?
Well, in speaking recently with some other mg&e executives, a phrase was used that this is a time of a profound shift in the utility business. We're here talking about these shifts, and the profound nature of it makes it exciting. If you're an engineer, if you're an economist, if you're a business major in finance, there's so many places, government relations, political science. Utilities are actually a pretty good place to work. I have 6 kids. One is out of college. I wasn't able to get her to a utility, but she is in a consulting firm working for utilities, so I got halfway there. My second one is going into consulting. He will be hopefully working for utilities. So I do think, part of it is you need to explain to younger people, some who are in the audience, that they really are a good place to work. And I think it's far more challenging. The utility business in our model is far more complex than people think it is. I still have friends who believe I work for the government. Other friends who believe you're just a monopoly. Why don't you get home until before 7 p.m.? So, but it's a very complex business. It's a lot of things that we balance. It's interesting and it's worth a shot.
We have about 100 employees at WPPI, and as a power supplier, you would think the vast majority of those employees are involved in the power supply piece of what we do, the planning, the management of the power supply resources. But that's not the case. Our largest sector is in energy services, where they're working directly with customers. We have about 17 or 18 employees that work directly with customers on energy efficiency projects, renewable projects. And then the other biggest sector that we have is in the technology piece. We have almost 20 employees that are in the technology piece, from customer information software, meter data management software. So we're a tech company in a lot of ways. And
that's the new branding.
Yeah, and when
utilities, the new tech.
And when we're going out to hire for those positions, we're competing with the same tech companies in the Madison area. So it's a tight market sometimes. We're competing with Epic, we're competing with the insurance companies, the hospitals, all looking for the technology skills. So when you think about a utility, you think somebody in a power plant. That's a piece of it, but it's not the whole piece of it. And really, I think the biggest challenge that our utilities are going to have in the future is the lineman ranks. When we look at what's happening with our lineman ranks, and that, for an individual that may not be geared towards college necessarily, linemen can make very good money, and it's a really strong middle-class type job, really good job. So
I've seen some, we've seen some good, I've seen social media. I know WEC's got folks down in Puerto Rico helping reconnect power. I don't know if your teams are down there as well.
There are several municipals down there working.
Disaster relief, I know you mentioned at your annual conference, you're down in Florida. So there is a big feel-good factor when you're able to send your linemen out to places that have been affected by these type of storms and get them back online. So, great. To audience questions. So first is a clarifying question. What is a capacity value for MISO? How does a utility get paid for this? Dan? Former consultant, can we ask you?
Sure.
Okay, so just basics.
There's capacity factors, there's capacity values. Right? So capacity value is, again, as a utility, we have to prove that we have the resources to serve our load plus our wholesale contracts plus a reserve. And to do that, we show MISO data that explains for each of our plants or contracts what has their performance been, let's say over recent years. MISO looks at that and assigns a value. So for example, if you build a new combined cycle gas plant, you'll settle in at 90 or 95% capacity value. So you build 100 megawatts, MISO counts 90 or 95. Okay. You build a wind farm, MISO will count 15, give or take, something like that, in Wisconsin. You build a solar farm, as Mike said, first year you get 50. We expect that in the subsequent years it's going to go 70 and possibly higher. So we need to stack up these resources with these capacity values and prove that we have what is required to meet our load as a utility. So that's the difference between capacity value, which is not necessarily related to a capacity factor.
Mm-hmm. Federal tax law just passed. What are the impacts on your businesses?
Well, it'll definitely be different for us. We're tax exempt.
Yeah.
But where we're going to see the change is in when we do contracts for renewables. There may not be as much of an appetite from equity investors, but we didn't lack any partners, and obviously these two are really good partners for us as well. We'll see lower transmission costs as FERC and others start pushing down the tax recovery and their rates, and so we'll see some benefit that will flow through to customers. But the direct impact of WPPI is different than it is for these two utilities.
Yeah, there definitely will be an impact, and it will be a lowering of cost for customers. We're working with the other Wisconsin utilities and the Public Service Commission to understand what those impacts are. The tax reform changes are extremely complex.
No, I thought they were supposed to be able to be explained on a note card.
They were, but they're not. So I've spoken with our CFO, who's working with WEC CFO. I was just in a meeting with another utility CFO, and my CFO said, hey, what are you guys thinking about this? And they didn't even know it was a part of the tax reform, so they're looking at it. So we don't know the full ramification of it, but what we do know is tax rates are going down. That is a cost decrease. Those cost decreases are typically passed on to customers, and we're working with the commission to understand how that decrease will get, one, how we'll see the decrease, and two, how will it get passed.
Do you see any impact, as you answer that question in this, because you talk renewables, any impact on renewable development as well as impact on your business?
Not directly, no. We were holding our breath because they were talking about that.
Oh, I know.
That all went through as we expected it to, so we were happy about that.
Great. Dan, any other comments?
No.
Okay.
I think Jeff got it.
Great. This is back to Jeff. So how much more renewables do you need to meet your 2030 goals at mg&e, and where are you at today as towards your 30% goal?
We are, I should have looked up these numbers beforehand. Greg Ballum and Don Peterson are sitting back there. I will ask them afterwards, but we are marching forward towards that goal. So when you look at our renewables, we have some renewables that we contracted for 10 and 15 years ago that will roll off. We have new ones that we're building. It depends upon where we come out with the solar that we're working on. So we're making steady progress towards that goal. We have an interim goal of 25% by 2025. We won't have any trouble hitting that. So we're in the mid-teens today, and we're continuing to 25.
That would include Saratoga? Or
Saratoga will add some to that.
So you're in the 20% plus or minus range with Saratoga.
Yeah, we have some that are rolling off as well, so that detracts. So I have not done that math recently, but we're marching
Wisconsin
forward.
unofficial math is they're pushing towards 20%.
I believe you, Tyler.
I can tell you that's our math.
We look a lot. We're about 15% today. By the time Point Beach comes on for us, we'll be 23, 24%.
Nice.
But we'll be about 40% emissions free when you add in our Point Beach nuclear contract plus what we get from our friends at Wpvi. So when you blend that all together, we'll be about 40% emissions free by mid-20s.
Wow. Yeah. So, Jan, you've addressed the developers. I'm going to start from the bottom up. We have a lot of builders in this room. We have a lot of solar contractors, electricians, suppliers. How can those type of folks get involved with the big solar projects that are on the horizon here in Wisconsin, and wind to some extent too?
Well, from our perspective, I've met a couple of you just out here. You're always free to call us. We do like to support Wisconsin companies. I really like the goal that Tyler put up on the mobile Renew app, which I looked at last night.
Yeah.
So, I think it's Wisconsin Renewables for everyone. But we would love to have more Wisconsin content. We won't be the developers of these fields, right? So, but if you make us aware of what you can provide, as we eventually sort through these different bids and decide who the developer will be, we'll do our best to connect you into that. But we're not going to direct the developers to who to use. So you'll have to make sure that you can make your case with the chosen developers.
We're hitting questions. Hit that one. We hit electrification. So here's an interesting one, Dan, for you. What is actually the process for retiring a coal plant? What does that look like? You've announced the retirement. You kind of alluded to it, but you announced the retirement of Pleasant Prairie. What does it look like to retire a coal plant?
Yeah, well, for this group, we're retiring quite a bit of coal. We're retiring the, if permission is granted by MISO, our plans are to retire Pleasant Prairie, to retire one of the units at Edgewater, to retire units at Pulliam, to retire the Presque Isle plant in the UP of Michigan. So we have quite a bit of coal retirements coming up. And again, I think what has facilitated a lot of these retirements is economics and the advent of new technologies, which has changed the math on least cost resource planning. So we applaud these companies and what's happened with technology. Pretty simple. We do look through our plans. We ask MISO for permission. We file a preliminary study. If that preliminary study comes back that they believe that we probably can retire it, we go through the planning process of what does it mean for our portfolio, how do we make up for these impacts with capacity and energy. We have to think through employee plans, how do we work through that and community impacts. We then file for final permission from MISO. So for example, that has been granted with the Pleasant Prairie facility. We do know the day the breaker will open, that plant will no longer generate. And then we will go through a process to shift the personnel around as best we can, and we will dismantle the plant and restore the site. It'll take some years.
Any chance of putting solar, wind, or other renewable or battery storage, given that the transmission and distribution infrastructure is there? We've wondered about this with the Kewanee nuclear plant, for example. Is that a great place to put some new renewable development? Because, hey, that we know we can move the power.
Maybe. Somebody told me last night that there are 18 million acres of tillable land in Wisconsin. Something like that. I may have the number wrong. But there's plenty of land. So as we look at our needs, one of the questions is, what is the least cost way to do that? With solar, we have to pay rent per acre. So very valuable land in a place like Kenosha, maybe better suited for other development. We're open to the idea, but we have not crossed that point yet.
Two super quick clarifying questions. The 350 megawatts, how many sites are you looking at that across?
Well, we have publicly stated we would prefer 2 sites.
Okay. Good enough. And then for Jeff, Saratoga, projected cost per kilowatt hour for the Saratoga wind farm, how does that compare with other sources?
So based on our modeling, it is part of our least cost plan, which means it's cost competitive with other resources, cost competitive with other wind resources, and cost competitive or better cost than other resources that we have available to us at that time. Iowa wind, because of the wind speeds, is more cost effective than Wisconsin wind for us, and because of the site that we have.
We're going to find you better sites. But
Yeah, that's, and I hope you do. I hope you do. We would like to be in Wisconsin, but when you look at it from a cost perspective, and one thing that's important to know is we have limited dollars, and every dollar I spend is a dollar of my customer's money. And so I want to be able to spend that money in the most cost-effective way to provide them the solution they're looking for. So that's what we do. Cost per megawatt hour, and I don't have the math down. I should have brought all
I
these
think
numbers.
it's 3.1 cents levelized by your PSC filing. Is that
Perfect.
right?
That sounds in the right magnitude. The way you can calculate that is $107 million times 66 megawatts divided by the capacity factor over a 25-year period. And I do think you come to
I think it's
$31. It's right around 30. I would have said 30 plus or minus a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the wind contracts that we entered into a number of years ago start rolling off in 27, 28, 29 timeframe. The Wpvi project that we signed for is almost 3 times less in cost to us than those contracts that would be rolling
I
off.
believe
So
it.
it's we've seen a significant drop in price, and it's almost a factor.
Yeah.
Just in 10, 12 years.
Yeah. We're at time. Please join me in thanking these gentlemen for joining us.